Hey, everybody.
Thanks for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about how to make the most out of your tiny house festival experience and why festivals matter. If you don't know us, I'm Alexis.
And I'm Christian, and we are Tiny House Expedition.
We are nomadic tiny house dwellers and the world's most traveled tiny house on wheels. Fun fact. We're not currently in our tiny house.
No, we're not. We're in Raleigh helping my mom downsize, but I've shown you guys before. But look, that's our little tiny house. We have a little webcam in there. So that's a live view of our tiny house right now. And
in Oregon.
And we had our friend Cody actually took a cool picture of the front of our house the last time you went by there. There it is. Oh, springtime in Oregon.
It's springtime here in the Raleigh area, North Carolina.
Oh, it's summer.
He hates the humidity.
It's so hot already.
But if you are new to our channel, we bring you tiny house and travel inspiration, how-tos, and advocacy news because we want to help you achieve your goals of creating a fulfilling life and home. And like we said, today we're talking about tiny house festivals. What's the big deal about them?
It's a big deal.
They're one of our favorite things that we've done in our time traveling. We've been to tons of them, and we always have a good time. But there's something more to just fun, and we're going to about them and why that we want to talk with you guys all about and kind of give you some of our best tips for how to maximize your time there because it can be pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, totally can.
Especially if you're a super fan like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And today we're having a special guest. Our dear friend and tiny house rock star Will Johnston is going to join us. He's known as Atlanta's tiny house guy. And currently he's organizing the Atlantic Station Tiny House Festival. So without further ado, let's get Will on here to say hello. So while we wait for Will to join us, I want to let you know he is the founder of Tiny House Atlanta, which started out as a tiny house enthusiast meetup group and then grew into something so much more. And when we were there last, was that a year ago?
Yeah, it feels like a year ago, yeah.
We got to check out their new tiny house office, which is pretty cool. And we actually did a tour of that. We're going to put the link above and below.
Yeah, it's a cool space. It's a really cool space. And it's a very cool space, and it's used in so many different ways in different places in Atlanta. Is it parked out in front of the?
It's been on the Beltline. So if you're familiar with Atlanta at all, it's this super hip, cool, like greenway system that has shops and businesses and food trucks all around it, and it's like right through the heart of downtown, and that's right where the Atlantic Station is, which is the location for the upcoming festival.
Yeah, which will be awesome.
So if you guys have been following us, you might know we're going to be keynote speaker on Sunday talking about lessons learned from traveling 55,000 miles with a tiny house. Got a few lessons.
Had a lot of lessons. Geez, learn from our mistakes.
We're going to share mostly our best advice from things mostly that we've done right and a few that we haven't. But we're also going to be hosting a workshop in the tiny office, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So double tiny.
So there's only for the workshop, there's limited seating. So we're doing, what is it, like 10 people at the most?
Per session.
So just so you know that.
So there'll be one on Saturday and one on Sunday, and it's entitled Tiny House Rich Lifestyle, a Life Planning Workshop. So from start to moving in and where to park and how to travel with or without your house, we're going to cover everything you need to know to get started. And we're going to actually offer a special discount. Yes. Oh, and here comes our guest of honor. What's happening, Will?
There you go. Third time's a charm. Sorry.
All right, we got it that time.
Thanks, everybody, for hanging in there with us.
Yeah, totally, guys.
It is the illustrious Will Johnston.
Hello, everyone. Will Johnston reporting to you live from Atlanta, Georgia.
You should do radio.
I get told that a lot. I'm trying. Side gig. We all got side hustles, right?
Hustle. Totally.
Make a living.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. Well, tell us about who you are and what you do, man.
So, hey everyone, welcome to this awesome talk. I'm Will Johnston, the Executive Director of the Microlife Institute and Tiny House Atlanta. I say the combo because we originally started as Tiny House Atlanta, but then we realized we were much bigger than Atlanta. And so we also knew that there is the micro world, and we wanted to actually bring in a lot of definitions of what micro meant. And that is the tiny house movement all the way up to the missing middle movement, where we are working to be housing advocacy to change zoning policy, building codes, and just all around legalize housing for people to use across the nation.
Yeah, because there is a huge gap from what's on the market and what actually meets people's lifestyle and financial needs.
Totally. Right now, 70% of American households are actually 1 to 2 people, yet the average square foot house is 2,600 square feet for 1 to 2 people. Now, back in the 60s or 50s even, the average American square foot of a house was about 1,600 square feet for 3.5 people family households. Now it's down to 2.5, actually probably even lower now, and it's gone up to 2,600. We are not building the products that matches our lifestyle. Plus, it also, during the huge recession, and I know everyone talks about this, in 2008, we lost a lot of, I don't want to say small developers. And when I say small, like not even micro homes, just homes that are built in the 1,500 square foot range, like those just went away, because they bottomed out, bankrupt because of the recession. And what came up is the McMansions. And actually, ladies and gentlemen, we do not have a housing shortage. If we actually learn to live with each other and like each other and actually treat each other as neighbors and be a community and live with other people, we would actually solve all of our housing issues. But we are Americans. We love our space, and we love our private space, and we love making basically all our entertainment revolve around where we live.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I find in the tiny house movement, as well as others, people are ready to know thy neighbor. People are ready to go out and be involved in the world, travel, not always be at home. But yet we are conditioning ourselves to be miserable by being alone, by thinking that the only way to be happy is have more stuff and watch a lot of TV.
It's so true. And it's amazing, after living in a tiny house for as long as we have now, just about 4 years, the intimacy that comes with being closer to the outside just because of the size. Like, we do have more interactions out with people around us. We do go outside more, but yet we still have our sanctuary space. Right. So it's like that perfect in between. Like I was telling the folks at home a minute ago, one of the things I love about your upcoming festival is kind of showing how you could bring this alternative tiny structure into a city. And I think it's going to be a really great demonstration.
Well, and I think that's also speaking to, what this conversation is of why tiny house festivals are so important, because we wholeheartedly believe people need to see, feel, touch. People need to actually experience what these micro spaces can do, are, and could feel like as their main home, or a weekend getaway, or something as an option, as potential as for generational housing for mom or dad to live in when they get of age and they just want to move closer to their kids. So we actually, I'm going to try this. Hopefully I don't mess this up. So I've got a little diagram. So start screen share. Here we go. All right. Is it backwards?
No.
Okay, good. So we are working with a number of people, and this is basically what our tiny house festival is going to be about, the spectrum of tiny. Who do you, as a person, how do you want to interact with micro spaces? Is it more vacationing, getaway on the weekends where less space, more vacation? Or are you more on the spectrum of like tiny house living, pocket neighborhoods? We actually are going to have a pocket neighborhood on site. And so we're really excited about that. We are partnering with going to another photo. We are partnering with Atlanta ADU company, and we are working with them to create this image of what a movable pocket neighborhood could look like in different communities, because a lot of people, they don't see it. They just associate anything with wheels as unfortunately, there's a stigma to wheels. And I want people to see that these are well-built, well thought through plans and homes that could be basically utilized within a weekend. You know, you just put out a call, say, I've got a half acre, we can fit 10 homes on it. You already have the design. You're able to demonstrate how and where the sewer, electric, water goes and how we use it. And then basically you build a community in a weekend. Even honestly, it could be a day. So the whole idea of showing government officials as well as communities, the whole NIMBY crowd, they love to dog on us. I think it's hilarious. We're actually working on the NIMBY spectrum, or not spectrum, the NIMBY index right now with a university, because it is amazing how progressive people are. But once they get to a certain level in their neighborhood, they don't want change. Do not change my neighborhood. Or they become, I always forget it. Is it Mrs. Kravitz on Bewitched, the nosy next door neighbor? That's we become Mrs. Kravitz, and you're like, you could reduce my property value, so therefore I am going to slap you with code violations, blah, blah, blah. And that is just so terrible that's how we are approaching housing. We live 70, I think the statistic is 70% of America in the next 10 to 20 years will be living in a city center. That means rural area are going to get more rural because less people are not staying there. And cities are just going to need the walkability and density and smart urban planning that there are so many talented people are explaining it to people, but they just don't want to listen. So sorry, I just got on a soapbox there.
No, that
Throw it
was
back to you guys.
Soapbox.
Thank you.
Well, you know, I love how you put that, because these festivals and these displays make a statement to, like you say, policymakers, to communities at large, but there's also like a very personal statement. And every time we've opened up our tiny house for tours at an event, I always say, like, my biggest hope is that when someone comes in here, they're going to leave with a new appreciation for tiny house design and living, that it's not about whether they want to live in a tiny house, but they're going to leave saying, hey, you know what? I get it. I understand that someone else, my neighbor, could live comfortably and well in an attractive, well-built, tiny home. That, you know, so that's like the big thing. It's like, it's not that, you know, us as festival organizers or tiny dwellers want everyone to live tiny. We just want people to appreciate it and say, hey, we want to make your community a better place. We also want a comfortable place to live that meets our needs. And you talk about this all the time. Tiny can mean quality.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at anything, you look at diamond rings to Mini Coopers to like we make things expensive. It's all about, you know, the brand, and it's all about location. We know, I mean, we know putting a tiny house in downtown Atlanta is going to be quite the interesting feat. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm trying to do that. But, you know, the whole idea of space utilization, like if there's a little postage stamp piece of property that no one even uses as a park, no one even touches it in a day, why not? Everyone, right. It kind of comes back to, like, you know, everyone wants their fair share, or they should be paying for something. And that's what I want tiny houses. Like, you know, there was that at the beginning of this movement, or I guess like maybe mid, or I don't know where we are in this movement. I still say we're at the beginning, but a lot of people are kind of like hiding their tiny houses. And I do know several people in Atlanta, there are tiny houses. Now, the shows have made people to believe there are a plethora of tiny houses throughout Atlanta. And they're like, oh, so how many tiny houses do you think there are? Like a couple 100,000? And I was like, no, maybe like 7. 7 or 8. That's what I know of. Now, don't get me wrong. There are grandfathered in carriage houses as well as accessory dwelling units, that fit within the micro or the tiny spectrum, but there aren't necessarily tiny houses on wheels, just, like Starbucks on every other corner. So I completely agree with you. It's like people need to see, feel, touch, and go into this with maybe saying, oh, it's not for me, but I want this to be an option. So what we are doing is normalizing this. We want people to be like, oh, there's a tiny house, there's an ADU, there's a McMansion, who really cares? It's my neighborhood, happy day. Like, we don't want people to care. Like, that's the point. We want it to be the point where people are like, oh, where do you live? Oh, well, over on 4th and whatever street. And they're like, oh, well, which is your house? Oh, it's the tiny house. Like, oh, cool. Well, I'll come over for a barbecue on Saturday. Like, there's no skipping a beat. Like, no one cares. But right now, even though, yes, there is that fad, like we're in that fad still, like, ooh, tiny houses, that's cool. And then I have to say, we as tiny house festival organizers, we depend on still having that fad or the idea of people seeing it. But the reason we started this is because we partnered with the city of Decatur. And Decatur actually passed a tiny house appendix, which their definition, again, they are talking about foundational. That does scare cities, wheel-based versus foundational homes. So 400 square feet or smaller, there is no minimum square footage in the city of Atlanta and the city of Decatur. And they're looking at ways to create cottage court ordinances as well as the policy to allow for smaller dwellings to be lived in full time.
That's amazing, because there's a spectrum, and it's so refreshing to see policymakers actually take serious, the fact that, maybe we should think outside the box and what's something that actually matches what people want to live in. And hopefully Long Road in Atlanta and elsewhere, finding a place for both movable and foundation based, because there are places for both. People want to live in both. Movable can fill in some certain gaps.
There's got to be hybrids. Yeah, the hybrid model of being 75% foundational, 25% wheel-based, or 50-50. I think the idea of just like the casita model, like where they're looking at trying to be like tic-tac-toe boxes where they can just pull out, plug in like an operator board all across the nation. But, we need it. And it's just like Tesla creating charging stations. Like, we have to be the pioneers in creating that world because the market is there. It's amazing how many, in fact, I was driving, I flew back from my parents' house in Maryland yesterday, and someone texted me, said I was mentioned on the radio, and they were interviewing a local mayor, and he was talking about affordable housing. And the radio host, who is a friend of mine, who has had me on several times, he was talking about affordable housing, and she brought up tiny houses. And he goes, well, I've never seen a model like that work. There is no model. Like, there is no model that a city has embraced unless it's for homeless people or for other certain particular demographics. I am an advocate for tiny house living. I want to normalize the option. I was recently speaking at an AIA conference in Asheville, North Carolina last week, and a lady from Housing First was speaking, and homeless people don't want to be put in tiny houses. They want to be put in quote unquote normal housing. So again, this is taking a demographic and putting them in something and then saying, be grateful, when actually we need to be looking at their needs and getting them housing first, and then saying, would you like to live in a tiny house as an option now that you are better on the right track, so on and so forth. So again, I look at this movement as just normalizing this option, not for anyone, but for everyone.
I completely agree. And I do like tiny homes and tiny shelters being used for homeless people in a bigger, in a more involved context, because seeing someone who's been struggling with homelessness in any kind of structure isn't enough for that person. It's not going to solve whatever issues they have. And to be honest, the best examples of tiny structures being used for homeless are actually tiny shelters, right? Because they don't have bathrooms or kitchens, and they're in a community setting where there's other services. So that's something that's like a misconception that I think festivals can help address is what is the correct terminology for the spectrum, like you said. And so I want to also talk about personally, like if someone is looking to downsize or to live in some kind of tiny or small home, there is really no better way to figure out what feels right for you and what designs, you relate to more than others and feeling the space in person,
God,
right?
Yeah. That's what we had to do. We before we even built our tiny house, we went and spent money to go to a festival and step into the space to make sure we could actually feel it. To make sure, this size, even though it was a small one, that was actually 6 inches bigger than ours is now. It was 18 feet. But I stepped into it and went, oh yeah, I could totally do this. It's not unreasonable.
Right, because you got to have that experience, because you might step into an 18-foot tiny house and be like, no, or you step into the next door one that's 20 feet or whatever size, and you're like, no, this is what I'm looking for.
Right, and I think also, it extends beyond the people who actually are looking at living in a tiny house. I think, it's interesting. I've had a lot of people in media say to me like, well, tiny house festivals are a very niche, group of, an event. I'm like, no, it's not. It's really for everybody. Like, we have talking about how to downsize, how to live with less, less space, more life, that whole idea of what is your, I don't want to say true calling, but like having your space help you propel you forward in life. And I really think a smaller space really helps that, because you get bored quicker. You kind of like get frustrated and be like, oh, well, I'm just going to leave. I mean, that's the point. Go live out in the world. You don't need to be in your space all the time. So like, I really have to educate some Atlantans and Georgians of just like why this festival could actually mean a lot to them. Because I mean, we have gotten into the accessory dwelling unit world, which is still micro, but it is amazing what interior designers, architects, and others can make this space be for people. Like 500 square feet, you can do a lot with if you utilize every inch. Now, you go to other developers who are building, these massive studio apartment complexes, whatever, and they've got hallways. Like once you start wasting space in an apartment, if you're just like, this feels so uncomfortable. But if it is well thought through, just like the tiny houses, like you guys said, you wanted to see, all right, can I do this? What type of person am I? Do I still have a couple more clothing items that I want? Or do I want a bigger kitchen? It's really asking yourself who you are as a person in this space, of which space you do want to accentuate just a little bit more. When we take our escape traveler to anywhere, people are just like, where's the closet? I'm like, it's right here. And they're like, and then I always think it's just funny when people are like, well, that's not big enough. I'm like, well, this is a model. It is customizable. You can put something else here. Like, it can be bigger. Like people, again, sometimes their imagination stops with what they see.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to let them break out of that box once they're in that box as well.
Yeah.
And that's why the variety is so important at a festival.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you the number of people who come into our 130 square foot, which is tiny home, which is one of the tiniest ones, and say, oh my gosh, I really love your shoe rack. Like I could use that in my 1,200, 2,500 square foot house.
I've had so many people say that. Oh my God.
Because it's like, like you said, it's the efficiency of a tiny or small home creates these really fascinating design and storage features that really could be used to make any space feel better. Because we've all been in houses that are probably like traditional size that feel small and awkward because of the design. So I really like the idea of someone being empowered to see something in a smaller space and say, you know what, I can do that in my own house now and make it work better for me. Because, for various reasons, going into a different house of any size might not make sense for you. So how can you maximize where you live today?
And I think also it's helping people have the conversation with themselves of letting go of material possessions. We as a culture think success is stuff, lots of stuff. It defines me. I have these things that makes me me. And it's not at all. And so the idea of showing that what amazing adventures you've had in this space, as well as great ideas that they could take away to their house. I also, at that AIA conference I mentioned, I got to meet Sarah Suzanka, who is the Not So Big House series of. She's an architect. She's wonderful. She just really talked about the right size for you. And, again, it's so amazing that developers dictate. And I'm not dogging on developers. It's a product. They are producing a product. But yet I feel we need more homes. We don't need products. We need homes. Homes that actually propel us forward in our sanctuaries, instead of these, money pits, or, basically the rat race, making you keep a job that you hate to pay off the mortgage, to buy furniture for that extra living room you don't use. I mean, it just makes no sense. And it's our parents' generation. It's a little bit of our generation. I mean, I still visit people's houses. I'm like, when's the last time were you in this room? They're like, maybe a year ago. And I mean, it just blows my mind. Yeah. But yet everyone's all about their portfolio too. So it's like, and I know we're capitalists, and I know we want money, but it's like, how do we build something that allows people to exist in a better life? Because we need a smaller footprint. It's environmentally better. I mean, if we use it, they did a study, Portland State University compared a regular stick-built 800 square foot house to a LEED certified 2,500 square foot house. The 800 regular stick-built, nothing fancy, outperformed the LEED certified 2,500 square foot house. So again, size matters. If you are building smaller and using space better, you are using less materials. It's less heating, less cooling, less maintenance. I mean, there's just so much more. But again, yet we are told that we need this 2-car garage, picket fence dream that most Americans can't afford now because of how the world is.
Totally. And so we got to liberate people's minds.
Yes, exactly. Break free. There are options.
And seriously, like, a great way to break free is you go to a tiny house festival. You're gonna meet people who are like-minded in embracing alternative lifestyles. And it's so funny to say alternative, because it's alternative to the norm of what you're saying, this big box, certain kind of house. But you're gonna meet other attendees, the speakers that you're gonna hear. These are all people who are okay with doing something that works for them, not what works for them, not what's supposed to work for the masses, but like, it's a very self-empowered movement. And I think people go to festivals, you should leave feeling empowered. Like,
yes,
that is the goal. And it doesn't matter what size house you live in now or what you want to downsize to. You're going to leave like that. So I want to talk, like, let's talk about what is best advice that we can give to people for getting the most out of their festival experience when they come. Will, why don't you start?
Yeah.
I think have your questions ready. Obviously, there's that also the spectrum of how much are you going to do to build your house, or are you just going to buy your house? So, who are you? Really ask yourself before you go, who are you as a person? Like, when you go to a tiny house festival and this interests you, be inquisitive of just like how much things cost, to, what's the weight of the house, to, how much storage, and really just kind of grasp what is there, as well as interview people. Like, seriously, find the people that are living it, just like you guys will be at mine, at our festival. Talk to them. People need to feel inspired, and also, like you just said, empowered, that there are options, and we also need them. We need them as a voice in this movement, and in this basically legalizing tiny and legalizing more housing options, because there are so many ways that they can help as just one person. So that's my first advice.
Well, so I love that. Have your questions ready, and I'm big on having notes. Like I put my notes in my phone or if in a notebook because Lord knows how many times, I know personally anyway, where I've thought about stuff ahead of time and I get to the situation and they just like whoop, evaporate.
Yeah, they totally evaporate. Yep.
So write it down, and I would say, and taking that a step further, take a look at the event's itinerary. What's on display? What are the speakers? And then make your personal itinerary. I mean, keep it flexible, but what are the things you definitely want to hit?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yeah. And I think
don't give you a small window either. Like, don't go for say, I'm only going for an hour and a half. Embrace it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
An hour and a half ain't gonna cut it, y'all.
No.
No.
And I think with those questions, with whatever questions you have, ask everyone. Ask, the DIY tiny house. Ask a builder. Ask someone that maybe lived in a schoolie. Ask all of those people those same questions, because you might start to see a pattern of how they answer, and it might guide you in a direction.
That's a really good point. And another one is like while you're there, another form of note taking is you bring your notes with you, right? And then take notes while you're there of stuff that you want to remember.
Yeah.
And take pictures.
Oh yeah.
Like
take pictures of everything.
Because you'll be amazed.
Be a part of the conversation.
Totally.
Yes. It's like push it out there that you are interested in this world and hashtag it, be a part of the conversation, share it. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we are stoked to be speaking at the festival and to be presenting a brand new workshop. We've got our Tiny House Rich Lifestyle workshop, life planning workshop, and it's Saturday and Sunday, like we mentioned before. And we're offering a discount for the first 2 people.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's awesome.
To sign up for Sunday's session, you're going to get $10 off with code TINYX. And I'm going to put all the details in the description below. And Sunday is also Mother's Day, Will. So what else can people get?
Well as have access to amazing workshops and speakers on Sunday that you guys will be keynoting at noon. If you love your mom and you want to take her to something fun and new, bring her to the Tiny House Festival because she gets in for free. There are a number of things. So just go to our ticket or go to tinyhousefestival.com and click on the ticket link, and it will tell you how you can get your mom in for free on Sunday. Or you can go to our Facebook page and follow up with some of the Mother Day comments. I'll be posting another one soon. If you're not part of our newsletter, I'll be sending one out today about it. I do believe you just go and you type in the access code MOM, and it takes you to a special area that allows you to buy 2 for 1 or 2 tickets for 1, something like that. Again, I'm not technical. I had someone else do it, but I will make sure that you all find out more information about it. As well as, again, there are plenty. Look at the speakers. I mean, we've got also 2 workshops per day. Both Alexis and Christian are going to be there both days. So they've got their amazing workshop on Saturday and on Sunday. But like Alexis said, for the first 2 people on Sunday, you get a $10 discount if you type in the code TINYX. That's TINYX. To the, promo code in the workshops under the ticketing page.
Perfect.
Awesome. We're so stoked. This is going to be a really great, and like we said, it's like full-on tiny experience because it's in the tiny office, which is pretty dope itself.
Yep.
So the question of the day, guys, I want to throw out to you is, will you be attending the Atlantic Station Tiny House Festival or any other upcoming festival? Let us know, and let us know what you hope to get from that experience. And just know by coming that you are joining a conversation and you're going to have a good time, guaranteed.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So, Will, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. This is our largest, we are a nonprofit, so this is our largest fundraiser of the year that helps us do our work. We are educating, advocating, creating pilot projects and research all around the micro-built environment. And you buying a ticket, coming and being a part of it means so much to us. as well as you are helping us keep this movement going and alive. And we are making such a big difference. And we so appreciate you being there.
You are awesome. Tiny House Atlanta, Micro Life. They rock.
All right. You guys have a good one. Thank you so much for having me today. And we will see you soon.
See you soon, Will. Bye.
Take it easy, Will.
Bye.
Okay, thank you everyone for watching today.
Yes.
Christian was typing furiously trying to answer your questions.
Always trying to get to your questions. So
hit us with more questions that you might have in the comments below. And please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video.
Don't forget to subscribe. Ring that little bell in the corner, and that will alert you to when we're doing these lives.
And Christian is working on an extra special tiny house tour for Thursday.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I am. I thought about this. I was like, who is the Godfather?
The Godfather, the most well-known tiny house pioneer.
Yeah. Think on that.
Think on that.
And then come back to us on Thursday and check it out.
Thursday, 3:30. See you there, live premiere.
Yep, got a really good tour.
All right. See y'all later.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye.
Bye.